as the second debater, a member of closing government will give some arguments. The first one is corruption can have a devastating impact on the availability, quality and accessibility of human rights related goods and service. Moreover, it undermines the functioning and legitimacy of institution and process, the rule of law and ultimately the state itself. The international human rights mechanisms, including the Human Rights Council, have paid increasing attention to the negative impact of the corruption on the enjoyment of human rights and made numerous recommendations to member states with the aim to prevent the suppressed corruption. And then the second one is the common wisdom. The common wisdom is that prevention is better than cure. This is particularly true for the prevention of corruption, where the public trust the effectiveness of institution, economic development, and the security of the state are at stake. Then even the most successful enforcement of criminal law happens after the crime has already been committed and the detrimental consequences of corruption have taken place. And then the third one, the impact. And then the impact of corruption on a business is largely depend on the size of the company. Large companies are better protected in the environment that is prone to the corruption. They avoid taxes more easily and their size protects them from the corruption. So while they are often also politically protected, which is why the survival of small, especially in the startup companies and the middle-sized companies, regardless of their importance for the growth of the company and the development, is much more difficult than the survival of large company. And then the fourth or the last, the corrupt will be more afraid of poverty than the fear of being imprisoned. So the only effective way to deter people from committing corruption is by impoverishing to the corrupt. And then the corruptors will only add to the burden on the state because of the new poor increases, because the constitution regulators, the poor are also cared by the state. Meanwhile, the confiscation of izzat must be limited, so that it doesn't violate the principle of punishment commensurate with the guilt and not violate the constitutional rights of the citizen. The pros and cons of impoverishment for the perpetrators of corruption have emerged. And then the pro argues that the perpetrators of corruption have made the people miserable, and then the detrimental state finances and is a disgraceful act. The counter argues that with the impoverishment method in providing sanction against perpetrators, corruption is violence of human rights and is also not regulated, especially in law in Indonesia. So the impoverishment in question is not absolutely poverty, but carefully calculated impoverishment can be specified as follows. The first one, impoverishment is defined as confiscation, and the second one is confiscation is carried out in accordance with applicable regulation, and the last one is the confiscation is accompanied by the calculation of the losses suffered by the state. And then apart from looking at from legal perspective, the crime of corruption must be understood related to the upstream of potential and even future problems, give rise to an act of corruption, developing a coherent anti-corruption policy which identifies the case of corruption and commits to coordinated and effective measures to address this case is prerequisite for success, and it supports that effort of the status parties to develop anti-corruption policies by providing technical assistance for the development of review of anti-corruption strategies by understanding the cash corruption then there is a way for us to suppress, prevent, and avoid action that have potential to lead to acts of corruption. And then the next is corruption is a big and interesting problem as legal issues which involves the type of crime that is complicated to deal with. So that corruption classified as a crime whose eradication must be carried out externally normal because the impact is very broad and has permeated everything fields of life, be it economical life, social, political, democratic, cultural, and the general welfare of the state, and accompanied by an increasingly sophisticated and complicated modus operandi. So, establishing procurement system built on the principle of objectivity, transparency, and competition is important to saving public money, and to ensuring that the policy and development objectives of the government are met. It provides assistance to the state parties to strengthen their procurement system and has developed tools to help them in achieving this important policy objective. And that the corruption is a crime that has been rooted in life nation, especially in Indonesia, starting from the government, people representative, and the enforcers law. So there is nothing wrong with the people being very hard with one crime. This many assumptions and discourses are put forward to give an deterrent effect of perpetrators ranging from impoverishment for perpetrators of corruption crimes and the death penalty with the bullet in the back of the neck, as which has been implemented such as in China and Vietnam. So the last one is corruption masking more about what consequences of the implementation of the corruptor are to their families and the institution they work for. Judgment on the surrounding environment is the same as corruptor, will be very attached to his behavior. Thank you very much.